1. A few years ago, I used to work as a kindergarten teacher. The daycare center where I worked had many, let's just say difficult families coming there. There were some really difficult kids I had to work with, but I had no problem with them. They are 2 to 5 years old, so they have time to learn how to live their lives. But the parents are a whole other story. There was this family that made us regret all of our life choices. Here's a couple of the best moments I encountered with them. It was on the 23rd of December, day before our place would close for 2 weeks. This was because our daycare center was so small and only very few kids actually needed daycare during Christmas holidays. So we organized with other daycare centers to center our services for holidays. I had promised to take the last shift before holidays. Parents picked up their kids relatively early. But soon I found out that the kids of this particular mother were still present. But no worries, kids were having a good time playing outside in the snow. So I picked their backpacks from inside and hung them next to the door, so they could leave as quickly as possible, and me right after them. Finally, the mother came just before closing time. I told her that her kids had a fine day and wished her happy holidays. They don't celebrate Christmas. And said that we would see them next time in January. She asked what I meant, and I told her that our daycare center will be closed for holidays. We had informed parents 2 or 3 times in the past month about our place being closed, and we had asked if anyone needed daycare during that time. I knew this mother had said that they don't need it. But now on the 23rd of December, days before Christmas, she said that she needed daycare for her kids the next day. I told her that all the daycare centers are closed during the 24th and 25th of December, just like every year before that. But then she started to argue that she needed to take her kids somewhere for the next 2 days because she had school. But I knew she couldn't have any school because she was studying in the same University of Applied Science I had previously, and I knew from experience they would also be closed for the next 2 weeks. I told her that all the daycare centers are closed for the next 2 days, and if she needed daycare for her kids during other days, she should have informed us earlier when we were organizing this kind of thing. But now it was too late. She wanted me to call my boss or otherwise organize daycare for her kids tomorrow. I told her politely that there was nothing I could do even if I wanted, because I was probably the last teacher working in the whole city now. Her arguing with me about her having to be present next day in the school had taken almost 30 minutes, and there was absolutely nothing I could do, even any higher-ups to call. I wished her happy holidays and went to pick up my stuff. I had very relaxing holidays, and when I came back to work after 2 weeks, I asked had the mother said anything about holidays, and everybody told me she said nothing that morning. Next time I had problems with this particular family was during next summer, but this time I had problems with the father. Like during Christmas holidays, our daycare center would be closed for summertime, and we would center our services with other daycare centers. I promised to work first couple of weeks of the summer. My colleague, another teacher, had just convinced this particular family that their kids require some form of daycare. At first he had said their kids would have no holidays during spring and would be present for the whole summer. My colleague managed to convince the mother that the kids also need summer vacation just like adults. She said that the kids could spend the beginning of summer with their father, who had agreed to this plan. But on the second of our summertime daycare, he appeared at our place with his kids and informed us that they would now spend their summer in daycare. Somehow we anticipated this, and me and my colleague came prepared. We showed him the paper where it said that his kids had no need for daycare during June. We also had a couple of other documents he had signed that proved he was aware of what he had agreed to with us, and we had done all of this early enough so that we would have had time to make changes, if needed. When we told him that, he got angry, and I mean really angry. I'm an adult man myself, and I had seen some more aggressive behavior from adults before, but even I was a bit scared he might hurt me or my colleague. He shouted and cursed and shouted even more. He was totally unable to handle what we told him. Even other groups were getting nervous as the father raced around the hallway. Our nurse tried to keep our kids out of all of this, but his shouting was really loud. Finally he left, and nobody was harmed. Next day we had our weekly meeting, and I told our boss what had happened, and showed all the documents to her also. She told me that she would talk with the father and sort this out. And day after that, she calls me and informs us that the father will bring his kids to us and they are allowed to stay for the whole summer. I went straight to my boss's office and argued with her that this family had already agreed that their kids won't need daycare during the summer, and that our group was already full. She just shrugs her shoulders and told me that this is how we will do this. I was quite disappointed at my boss and I told her. This family was always doing bull like this, and yes, they were abusing the system as much as possible, and that I don't approve of her decision to allow them to break the rules like this. She told me that there was nothing she could do and I just have to handle it. Yeah, handle the problem she had made. So this happened a few years ago, and I still like to tell this story to new teachers in order to prep them for what could happen when they start work. 2. Hello, strangers. For context, I'm playing on my brother's tablet on the bleachers in the summer camp's gym, waiting to be picked up. My brother went off to do something and he let me use it. The entitled brat just happened to be in my camp. Yippee. The cast, me. The entitled brat, let's call him Jimmy. The entitled mother, Karen, my brother, Eddie, and staff member, Stuart. Here's the story. I was sitting in the bleachers playing Fruit Ninja, about to beat my brother's high score when this 8-year-old looking Jimmy, I was 12 at the time, my brother 10, came up to me and asked me,
"Hey, can I have your tablet?"
No, this is my brother's and you have to ask him. I doubt he'd give it to you anyways.
Come on, he's not here.
No.
Fine.
He stomps away, leaving me thinking, that was that. Boy, was I wrong. I go back to playing my game. I was 5 points away from beating my brother. Keep in mind, I'm the kind of guy who doesn't take anyone's crap. After a few rounds of trial and failure, I look up to see Jimmy telling his mom, Karen, something. I think nothing of it and go back to playing. About 20 seconds later, Karen is standing over me. Can I help you?
You have something my son wants. Give it here.
She thrusts a hand toward me, making the gimme gesture. I take in this moment to examine Karen. Kind of fit, kind of not, had a scowl on her face that would make me think she can have her way with anything. And anyone. And then I see a very smug Jimmy standing behind her. I am not going to give them what they want. No.
I'm an adult. Give it here.
She said that last part like I couldn't understand English, so I decided to do it back to her. It's my brother's tablet. No.
How dare you talk to me that way?
You're not getting this tablet, lady. Go away. At this point, I want to go back to playing, so that's what I do. Big mistake.
Don't you ignore me.
What do you want?
You know what I want, so give the tablet to me now. My son wants it, and you're too old to be playing childish games anyhow.
Is it just me, or do a lot of Karens say that a lot? If they're childish, why are you exposing your son to this stuff? She stops for a moment.
I'm an adult. Now give it.
She then tries to take it from me, so I tuck it under my arm. Now go away. I raise my voice so maybe people will hear.
I want it, I want it, I want it.
It's weird how Karen's hellspawn actually did a better job of getting attention than me. Still saved the day. Edward walks in on the scene. What's going on here?
Listen here, kid. We're trying to do something here, so buzz off.
As long as you leave my brother alone. There my little brother is, saving the day. I say, "Lady, leave us alone." Finally, one of the staff members, Stuart, who happened to not be wearing AirPods and doing a shoddy job of hiding them. What's going on here?
These spoiled brats just took my angel's tablet, and they won't give it back.
She then went on about some BS nobody wants to hear. The point is she lied so she can give the tablet to Jimmy. And now Super Broski 101 and Edward? I was scared I was going to get into trouble. Jimmy wanted my tablet. I told him no. And now his mom is trying to get me to give it to him. Edward said, if you want proof, looks at Karen. Ask if her son knows the code. Karen pales.
My baby doesn't need to do that.
Good idea, Edward. Jimmy, put in the code. Jimmy starts crying. Well, can you leave us alone now, Karen?
I can't believe these staff members.
She shouts insults at us as she drags her wailing kid out of the gym. I made sure to thank Stuart and made sure he didn't get fired and backed up his side of the story when Karen talked to the boss. 3. Cast is OP, yes, it's me, ED, entitled father, K, the kid, and also the next starting striker for Manchester United. So when I'm not serving people chicken and cleaning out playgrounds, I play in an informal soccer league as a goalkeeper. We had practice one Friday a week or two ago in the afternoon. It let out about 6 p.m, and I stayed at the field for a little while afterwards, practicing goal punts. It was pretty routine. I kicked the 3 balls I had with me and fetched them and repeat. The lights had come on at the field, so I could see just fine. While I was fetching one of the balls, I noticed a dad and his son started shooting on the net at the other end of the field. Neither had been at the practice, and I didn't recognize them. The kid sounded upset, though. I just went back to my punting for a short while longer before the dad came over to my half of the field.
Excuse me, are you a goalie?
I was still wearing my goalie jersey and my gloves, so I had no reason to say no. I am. Can I help you?
Well, my son is tired of shooting on me because I can't do very well. So, would you mind taking my place?
Yeah, sure. I was tired, but it had been a good practice for me that day, so I was willing to give it a few more saves.
Fantastic. Go, try your best. He's a real ace.
So I did. I walked down to the goal and introduced myself to the kid. It was probably around 13 or maybe a little younger. To be blunt, the kid was not very good. He began shooting from inside the penalty area. He couldn't aim his shot at all. His first shot went wildly over the crossbar, and his next went straight to me. Eventually, he started to move his shot around as he got control of it. But I never had to take more than 2 steps to save it. His dad got pretty frustrated and went to go find the bathroom, which the kid was pretty upset about. So I tried to help him. I showed him how to keep his balance while shooting and how to direct his shot more. I also showed him where it was hardest for the keeper to get it. He was kind of understanding and overall was pretty receptive. Once he started hitting the net consistently, I went back in goal. After one bad shot and one that was straight at me, his third was the best shot the kid had done all night. It was a beauty to the top left corner of the net, and if I hadn't been waiting on that exact spot, I would have had no chance. I had to go all out, and barely got my right hand on the shot to push it over the crossbar. On my way down from my dive, I banged my extended shoulder on the goalpost and hit the floor. The kid came running over when he saw I wasn't getting up at first.
Are you okay?
I'll live. It was a hell of a shot. I sat on the goalpost and saw ED come running over from the other side of the field. I figured he was coming over to ask if I was okay, so I was pretty surprised when his first line was,
What the hell is the matter with you?
Pardon me?
How could you try so hard to save that shot? Kay's just a boy.
Dad, he was just doing his job.
Don't interrupt me. This young man owes you an apology.
ED stood with his arms crossed and a glare looking down at me. I stood up and leaned against the crossbar and stared back. I seriously thought he was going to hit me or something.
Well?
Frankly, by this point I was pissed off. I definitely had a bruise on my shoulder, this dude was demanding an apology, and I was exhausted. So I stood up and very flatly told him, Fine. I'm sorry you set your son's standards as a goalie so low. I'm sorry the first time he felt like he made a breakthrough, you came and ruined it by screaming at me. I'm sorry you're such a piss-poor teacher, and I'm sorry that I stayed to help him. I walked away and started collecting the 3 balls I had with me. Eily started screaming at me, to which I responded by turning, looking at him, taking my gloves off, putting my headphones in, and walking away while putting my gloves back on. I couldn't care less about this guy, and I wanted to make sure he knew it. As I was picking up the 3rd ball, he stepped on it to try and keep me from moving it. I heard through the music something about how,
This is my son's now, and because you were such an ass back there.
Fortunately, I was able to quickly move my hands, kick the ball from under his foot, and dribble it away. He was yelling after me, but I picked it up, stuck it in my bag, and hopped on my bike, and I was gone. I don't suppose this is a typical story, but this guy started by attacking me when I was hurt, demanding an apology when no one was at fault, and then trying to steal my soccer ball when he already had one. Hope you all enjoyed Goalie's Bizarre Adventures. 4. This is the story of the EM who nearly caused my brother's death due to her laziness. Not once, but twice. I had to ask my parents for certain details on this story since it happened when I was only 9 years old, but I will tell it to the best of my ability. One of my pet peeves are parents whose entitlement tells them that they don't have to put in the work to make sure their kids learn to properly interact with others. They let them run wild while they, the parents, go and do whatever they want instead of caring for their greatest responsibility, their precious little monster. Not only does it inconvenience everyone around them, but it does damage to the child's social future. One summer when my little brother Jace was about 5, we had an international guest in our home for about a week. Side note, for years and years I thought their stay had lasted a month, but apparently it had only felt like it. This EM, who we will call Pam, is a good person at heart, and is known for working well with children. In fact, she moved overseas to work orphanages, which is how she met and adopted her son as an infant. So we were shocked to find she treated Benny like he was her angel, giving him everything he asked for, almost never disciplining him. Benny was only 1 year older than Jace, but was about twice as heavy, unhealthily so. I do not blame him for this, of course. It is probably an unfortunate mix of genetics, coupled with his parents' desire to spoil the hell out of him. I remember Pam often mentioning that they wanted Benny to look like us, so they were glad he was a beast too, just like they were. However, Benny used his size advantage to physically bully Jace whenever our backs were turned. If Pam didn't happen to be in the room, this wouldn't stop him because there was never a consequence. The most she would do was say,
No, honey,"
in the most patronizing voice you ever heard, as though she were speaking to an infant. She was not like this with other kids. She would scold my brother for provoking him, or even for just fighting back. Jace was very passive and quiet about this bullying, probably never even fighting back with all his strength. His strategy was to avoid Benny, but Pam took that as Jace not sharing, so she would get onto him for that too. When Pam wasn't paying attention, I wouldn't let Benny push Jace around, but she would accuse me of being bossy if she caught it. My mom didn't go against Pam much out of respect for her, besides gently correcting Benny from time to time, or by herding us kids to her when Benny would act out. She had always looked up to Pam until now. Inside she was angry, but on the outside she remained polite. This tension all came to a head one day when we decided to take a swim in our backyard pool. Jace was a strong swimmer for his age, whereas Benny had to wear arm floaties. At first he was uncomfortable in the water, but as time progressed, he became more and more confident, and more violent. He would dunk Jace every time he got near enough. It wasn't a large pool, so this happened every other minute or so. He pushed the limits further and further until he was holding Jace under for as long as he could. One time, Jace wasn't able to escape. I was out of the water at the time and was not aware of this. It took about 20 seconds for my father to realize Jace wasn't surfacing. He looked over, saw this struggle, and immediately dove into the pool and rescued his son. He raised his voice at Benny, who scrambled out of the pool to hide behind his mother. She was not happy with my father for losing his temper, and implied that he was exaggerating the situation.
"They were just playing,"
she said. I'll tell you right now that he was not. Jace was traumatized by this experience. It instilled a great fear of drowning in him that took years to get over. Thankfully, he overcame it and was able to join the swim team, but to this day he says that drowning would be his least favorite way to die. Pam gave Benny a little longer talking to this time in order to look good in front of my parents, but it was clear she didn't see him as having done anything wrong. Perhaps it was because she hadn't been supervising her child well enough to see what had transpired, but that doesn't give her any parenting points either. Especially since Benny did it again the very next day. After that, we weren't allowed to swim unless my father was in the pool with us. We were so relieved when they flew home, far, far away. I wish I could say that was the end of the Benny Jace saga, but it progressed from there when we moved to Europe a couple years later. We met up with them in a different country than their own, to run a vacation Bible school for the village my family was living in. I won't get too deep into it, as it is not as desperate of a situation, but let's just say that the entire week they spent with us there, Benny continued to get preferential treatment thanks to his mother. He got to sleep in the mansion house while we slept in a trailer. He didn't have to do any of the chores we did. and while she handled all the village kids very normally, her little angel could run around doing whatever he wanted. The last time I saw him, over 10 years had passed since our first meeting. He was a quirky, socially awkward boy with long, greasy hair and a straight-up neckbeard vibe, the self-taught guitar-playing type. He hit on me, 19 at the time, in such a cringe-inducing way during our 2-hour-long van ride together that my father and I couldn't help but laugh whenever he made what he thought was a subtle flirt, which was usually some type of brag. Pam will occasionally post pictures or videos of him still, and I honestly can't help but feel bad for him. He still has the physique of a round, chubby baby, except now it isn't cute. Pam, we forgive you for allowing your son to nearly drown Jace, and we wish you the best. And Benny, if you end up landing a girl someday, somehow, and become a father, don't be as entitled as you were then. Please grow up. 5. Oh boy, where do I start? My fiancée and I live with her mother at her house. We live in a nice neighborhood, so generally we have very friendly and chatty neighbors who like to come over a lot. But there is one family I find quite annoying. This just happened 3 days ago, so I needed somewhere to vent, and figured this was where it should go. Now let's get started. Cast. Entitled Brat, who is about 7 years old, EB. Entitled Grandma, EG. Fiancé, F. Me. If I recall, it happened right when F got home from work. We were chilling on our bed, drawing and talking about our day when creak. EB just walks in the room with his shoes on without even knocking. We look at him, confused because we didn't even hear EB and EG come in through the front door. Immediately, EB climbs on our bed and grabs hold of my leg and squeezes. I'm not comfortable with kids touching me, so I squeeze out of his grip and ask why he was here.
I wanted to see what you guys were doing.
Okay, but you need to ask next time to come in. EB completely ignores me and starts walking around our room and touches our stuff.
Do you guys have any games? I'm bored.
F says, well, yes, but none you can play.
I want to play your games, though. You have cooler games.
EB then spots our collection of amiibos and starts playing with them on our bed, on our art supplies, and in our face, again without asking. F and I look at each other, getting annoyed by his antics. He then looks around our room once more, screams and points at one of our posters that has the classical serial killer movie characters. Posters included Chucky, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Scream, Jigsaw, etc.
These are scary! Take them down! I'm gonna have nightmares! I don't like murderers. You shouldn't have this in your room.
This is my room, EB, so those posters stay up. I was just trying to ignore him, looking on my phone for somewhere to go out to eat with F.
No, take them down now!
Or what?
Or I'm going to kill you!
So you're going to become the very thing you hate?
No, murderers are bad, but I'm just gonna kill one of you guys.
EB is starting to get visibly mad at us. He picks up my sketchbook and is holding it above his head, ready to throw it at F.
You have 3 seconds to take those posters down and burn them, or I will throw this at you!
I started laughing, because at this point he was trying to sound serious. 3 seconds doesn't give us enough time. Oh no, what are we going to do? F was having none of it. She was angry. And you have 2 seconds to put that book down and get out of my room. 1, 2, get out now! EB walks out of her room. If only it ended there. About 5 minutes later, EB comes in with his EG.
Look, see, they have an icky poster and they won't take it down. I'm gonna have nightmares.
EG looks around her room in awkward disgust and sees the poster.
Yeah, that is a nasty picture. You really shouldn't be in the presence of kids.
They won't take it down. I want them to burn it.
He does tend to get nightmares very easily. You guys should probably take it down, at least while we're here.
Both of us couldn't believe what she said, and we were so shocked into silence, and clearly annoyed with the situation. Well, we were going to go out and get something to eat until he came into our room. She ignored us and changed the subject by trying to talk about the weather, when we clearly were having none of it.
Yes, I just remembered we were going to get the mail. Come on, let's leave, EB.
Evie stormed out grumpily,
You know, girls, boys will be boys.
and then walked out of our room. This kid gets away with everything. He needs to learn some basic manners and personal space. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the Impractical Proudness of Parents. iPop, number 35. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and send in stories for use in this video. You know, you don't really appreciate it at the time when you're young, but listening to stories like this, it really does make you appreciate every single time your parents told you no when you were a kid. Makes you appreciate that you're not entitled to everything you want. That you can't have everything you want, that quite frankly you need to work towards earning things when you want them. And that there is definitely a time and a place for everything. Okay, and with that, I'm gonna head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.